The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, gentlemen, this is my first time using GoToWebinar, so we're going to work through the kinks here, but I believe it's going to be fully recorded with all audio and everything that we need here. Right now, you're all muted, so let me see if I unmute you and you're able to speak. All right, Ard, I just unmuted you. See if you can speak.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you, Ard. And Brent, just did you. Jamie?
Can you hear me? Cool. Hi, guys.
Awesome, yeah. And Nick.
Hi, how's it going?
Cool, all right, got y'all. All right, how's it going, guys?
Good. Great.
Great.
Yeah. Enjoying the assignments, enjoying everything that we're doing, or where are we at?
Yeah. Oh, actually, I love this assignment you gave us. I'm just about done.
Nice. The prop money one, right?
That's right.
Nice.
Just going one more pass at it.
Cool. I'm excited to read them. I think everybody kind of took a very different angle with it, which is exactly what I wanted. So it'll be really cool to see what you guys put out. We're missing Mikhail. He said he'd probably come on late. And who else? Remind me real quick. Phil. He said he wouldn't be on, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
I couldn't make it.
All right. Cool. So you guys are liking it. Any questions? Anything you have for me before we start on this one? Try to keep this one to an hour.
Yeah, I do. Lucas, real quick.
Sure.
About the VSLs that Jamie and I did, do you know timeline? I know you're busy, so I don't mean to bother you about it, but do you know if you have a timeline for those?
Yeah, so that's on my docket for today. I've been working on them since Wednesday. So hopefully by the end of the day today, I'm going to have them all reviewed and get you guys back the feedback on there. So,
cool. Just a question, if I may.
Yeah.
A suggestion maybe for future webinars. I don't know. It seems that like this last one with the prop money, we've all been looking at each other's assignments, which is pretty cool, being able to see how each other approached it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe could we maybe have a live session where you just review and critique everything, so we can see what you're going through in your head sometime when you critique and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, is that something you guys want to do?
Totally. Sounds awesome.
All right, cool.
Online butchering.
Right? A little bit of a hot seat. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That,
It just strikes me that way we'll find out how you think we can all be better, because obviously we're all going to learn from how each other are going to get better if it's being openly discussed, I suppose.
Yep. All right, I like that. Good suggestion. We'll make that happen.
Thanks.
Cool. All right, so we're going to keep, like I said, we're going to keep this to about an hour. So we're going to go right in and talk about the content of the fifth stage. This is a Gene Schwartz concept that he kind of cultivated over his entire career. By now, I'm sure you guys know I'm a fanboy, Gene Schwartz. But the stuff that he wrote back in the 60s is relevant in the 60s and relevant today, and it's going to be relevant again in 50 years. So it's really, really important to understand this kind of stuff. If you need to, go ahead and mute yourselves unless you have a question. You are unmuted as far as, if you want to ask a question during the content, but same as always, if you have them, try to write them down unless it's really pertinent and can advance the content and what we're doing right now, and then we'll answer them at the end. So, fifth stage, how to capture saturated markets and dominate industries. This is more relevant today than ever before, and it's only going to get more and more relevant. The reason why is because the market is no longer an individual style market. Everything is connected. And that didn't happen until the internet was invented and we were able to see things at such a larger scale. The forces behind this trend of interconnectedness and markets bleeding into each other is driven by mass media, which started with the television and radio, but expanded once the internet hit because everybody is now connected to everyone in a one-to-one style connection versus a one-to-many style connection with the mass media. So you can see how that connectivity is changing things and making markets that would normally be smaller or would normally be more exclusive interconnected with everything else. And so you can't just rely on the stage that you think your specific product is in or your specific market is in. You have to understand the global feel for things around your market, around the desires that are building that market, things like that. So the fifth stage is extremely relevant. That's why I'm expecting a lot of questions for this one and kind of like some clarification, because it pervades, honestly, all of marketing. I mean, the marketing and markets still go through the 5 stages, how Gene talks about them, and you can see it happen. But the speed at which it happens and the ferocity with which it happens is extremely large, much larger than it was when he wrote the book. So important to understand this kind of stuff. And that's why I really wanted to bring this up now, because it'll help everything going forward. All right, so we're going to cover a couple things today. First thing, we're going to talk about the problem itself, the 4th stage, and the complications with the 4th stage. Then we're going to talk about the 5th stage, but we're going to describe it in the context of a killing field. Now, killing field is a military term. You can also hear it called a kill zone. It's the place where people go to die, basically, and where products and services go to die. When people try to enter the 5th stage, they oftentimes can't make it. It's a very, very difficult thing to transition into. And before they even reach the 5th stage is often when the market either collapses or their product collapses or something happens. So these 4th and 5th stage components to the market are really, really the most difficult, which means for you as a copywriter, they're the most lucrative. And if you are going to be a freelancer, you're going to help people in that general capacity. If you see someone who has a product who's in the 4th stage, or it's coming up on the 5th stage, or even about to transition into the 4th stage, that is where you're most valuable as a copywriter, because that is where your creativity, your understanding of the market as a whole, and where your skills in being able to persuade people come into full effect. The 1st and 2nd stages are pretty easy to do. You either say what the claim is or you kind of embellish the claim a little bit. But the 3rd stage gets a little complicated with creating a mechanism, but it's not that difficult. You just pick the coolest feature out of the product and create that as the mechanism. But the 4th stage and the 5th stage are where copywriters make most of their money. It's where most of the controls that you see back from Gene Schwartz age and Claude Hopkins age, all the way up till now with, John Benson, Harlan Kilstein, some of the big A-listers that you see out there, Chris Haddad. Those guys are writing those big controls and getting those huge things like the End of America VSL that we talked about with Stansberry. I said it was Agora, but it is actually Stansberry. Those are all 4th and 5th stage sales messages, or transitioning a 4th stage to a 5th stage sales message. So every single massive control that you see is transitioning into that. So that's the opportunity. That's the lucrativeness. That's where people are getting, 6 figures in royalties for the rest of their life. So it's a pretty big deal. The 2 roads. So there are 2 roads once you hit the 4th stage. There's 2 things you can do, and you have to make a choice as the marketer or as the copywriter. So then you talk about the harder path, which is the 5th stage, and I refer to it as raising the dead. You'll see why. And then we'll go into some techniques. We'll go into some specifics on how to use the 5th stage and how to change the 4th stage to the 5th stage and what you can kind of do there. So again, I anticipate a lot of questions, so write them down if you need to, and we'll work from there. So let's talk about the problem. The 4th stage and its complications. So the 4th stage, like we discussed in a previous webinar, you are essentially taking a new mechanism that you developed in the 3rd stage and making it bigger. You're embellishing it. You're trying to convince people that not only is your mechanism better, but all the other ones aren't as good, or there's reasons for the other ones that you shouldn't use them, things like that. If that doesn't work, or you're reaching the point where everybody is embellishing their mechanisms, then you have to start looking for new ones. And this cycle can turn over. This 3rd and 4th stage can turn into kind of a circle for a little while, where everybody's trying to figure out a new mechanism for their product or service that's new and that can actually capture the market's attention for a certain period of time, is legitimate, which means they didn't just make it up, and people can smell that, like we talked about in a previous webinar, but is a legitimate new mechanism. But then these other two, which is also believable and significant, the mechanism can't be so unbelievable that people don't pay attention to it. People gloss right over it. So you see these hypey headlines in the fourth stage, and they're just completely unbelievable. You know, how to get $10,000 clients in the next 24 hours. After people have already seen every single type of ad that says, you know, 5 clients a month paying you $10,000, 20 clients a month paying you $5,000, like different ads that hit you with those claims, all of a sudden you see a bigger and more ludicrous claim. It's not believable anymore. And significant is something that is different from new and legitimate believable, because in their mind, there has to be a shift that happens when they read that headline and they go, huh, okay, now I understand why they're bringing up this mechanism. It's new, it's legitimate, it's believable, but there has to be kind of a reason why behind bringing it up. You know, like, why didn't you bring that up in the first place? Is their natural reaction. So with these 4 criteria, you can see how difficult it is in the fourth stage to continue to hit those headlines and get that attention. It's only more difficult. Back when he wrote this, Gene Schwartz, when he was talking about this kind of stuff, the attention span on modern men and women was actually much, much, much higher than it is now. Nowadays, you've got about 7 seconds to capture their attention, and you've got about half a second. You've got about half a second to capture their attention, meaning like they're actually looking at your thing. And then you've got about 7 seconds to keep their interest. So with that said, coming up with this stuff gets way more difficult. That's why you can get paid a lot as a copywriter, but that's why it's also a killing field, like we'll talk about later. And what makes it even more difficult is that every single ad that precedes your stuff, is adding to the problem. It's making it harder to write a headline that people believe. It's making it harder to make a new claim or bring up a new mechanism or something like that. And so eventually what happens here, you can see the downward spiral. The market stops believing everything. They stop believing everything involved that has even those words in it. You know, high ticket clients becomes a joke. $10,000 clients becomes a joke. Coaching program, things like that. It all becomes a joke because they've seen so much stuff at this point. They probably bought the products and kind of like not had a good experience because they're obviously still in the market. So it's jaded, it's cynical, it's crap, and it's dying. And so all of your prospects are either jaded and cynical or already customers of someone else, or, you know, something happens here. So that's why I say this is where most markets die or shift or stagnate. They die because they're trying to do the same thing and things are getting more expensive. They shift because they're not getting the same results and they don't want to die. Or they stagnate, meaning they're getting the same results over and over and over again, but they're not growing and they're not getting new customers. And eventually those kind of wither away. They don't really go away. They just wither. So think about MySpace. You know, it's still around. You can still log in and get an account, but it's stagnated, hasn't gone anywhere. It's slowly dying. So it explains the phenomena of gurus where, you know, everybody talks shit about the gurus and how like, oh, this guy was teaching webinars 2 years ago, or this guy was teaching Twitter a year ago, or this guy's teaching Snapchat right now. I wonder what he'll do next year. Well, this is why. Because things happen so quickly nowadays and these markets change so fast that these gurus are making hay when the sun is shining. But then when it starts to get more difficult, the leads get more expensive, their business really isn't where it needs to be as far as, you know, profit margins or lifetime customer value. They hop around, they go to the next thing. They have to, because their business isn't built to weather the storm, and they don't understand how to transition from the fourth stage to the fifth stage. So that is kind of why the fourth stage is so important as a copywriter, and where you need to understand. These are just some examples I pulled off the internet. I searched some coaching keywords on Facebook ads and things like that. So you can see here how everything starts to look very similar. You got a face, you got a suit, you got a smile, you got the same kind of text, that same kind of headlines. I actually went through for my own research and wrote down about 40 or 50 headlines from ads like this, and every single one of them was claiming the same thing. 18 AdWords clients, $1,500 each in 2 months, free case study. Shares a simple system to generate 1, 2, or 5 high-ticket SEO clients. 5 ways the top coaches can get more clients. Hosting a new training on high-ticket funnels to, you know, compared to 12x and things like that. So this market is reaching a fourth stage bloodbath. These guys right here, you may not see next month. You might not see in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. because their marketing isn't effective going forward. Everybody, I just hit refresh on my personal page and saw these over and over and over again. And so their target market is seeing the same thing. I wrote down the keywords that they're trying to search for, because you can do that. If you go up, I don't know if you can see my mouse when I do this, but if you go up to the right-hand side of the ad and click that tiny little arrow, it'll tell you why you're being targeted. It'll give you one reason why you're being targeted. So I wrote down the gurus and things like that on why they're targeting them. It runs the gambit. It's huge. Everybody's being targeted for these major keywords like Gary Vaynerchuk and Anik Singhal and Mike Dillard and, you know, big names like that, Ryan Dice. So your market is just like this. Even if you're not in the high ticket coaching market, your market is just like this. It's getting hit by all these different advertisers saying the same things to the same prospects over and over and over again. And it's happening more and more rapidly. So the only way for you as a copywriter to succeed is to not only understand this and understand what the market is seeing, but have a process to move it past this stage, to capture people's attention again with something different. I've seen a couple people who are doing a fairly decent job, but here's the hard part. There's no real like, okay, if this, then that type rule. And that's the most difficult part about being a copywriter at this stage. You have to just anticipate and understand what's going on and then use the trends that you see as a writer to capture the market, capture the new attention, and move from a fourth stage to a fifth stage. So let's talk about the fifth stage in the context of killing fields, right? Again, the market is tired. It's physically exhausted because they've seen so many of these promises. They've clicked on so many links. They've seen so many videos. They've seen so much stuff in the mail. They're actually exhausted. Think about how you feel when you're exhausted. Think about how you feel when you just don't want to handle it anymore. It's apathy. You just ignore stuff. You don't care anymore. Even if you have a desire to do something, that desire is suppressed by the fact that you're tired and exhausted by what you're seeing. Right? So you could still want to lose weight. You could still want to grow your business. You could still want to find a good relationship or anything. You know, you could still want to buy air filters for your apartment complex, but you're so saturated, you're so tired of everything that's coming at you that you just don't notice it. You don't see it. You physically go blind to the ads that you're seeing and to the messages that you're seeing. And so to stand out, you have to recapture that. You have to understand that that's where their mind is at. So, you know, these are some of the symptoms of it. The competitors are dropping out. You start seeing people go away, or you start seeing people advertise less. The clicks are more expensive. If you're in the market, you notice your cost per click is going up. You notice your cost per lead is going up. Everything like that. It's what happens, especially with these new ad networks that are all auctions. You know, more people pile in, more people are spending more money to try and, you know, outbid each other. Things go up, clicks are more expensive, clicks are down, blah, 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 blah. Response is down. Your emails aren't getting opened. It's a bad thing. Now, I'm talking kind of fast and this is being recorded, but as I'm explaining this to you and I'm talking about these issues, this is exactly what your target market is experiencing if you're a copywriter. These are the problems that they're dealing with today in their business. So if you want to reach out to them and you want to say, look, you're experiencing all these things that I'm talking about right now, I can help with that. That is a very, very powerful value proposition, right? So don't just take this as kind of reiterating the same information over and over again. This is something that you can use today or tomorrow to go find the kind of clients who need help with this, right? And we'll explain how to help them with this at the end, but take some notes, write this down. These are the problems that they're experiencing. Jumping the shark. So like I said, the apathy means they're not going to accept any new mechanisms. They really just don't care. But then people start jumping the shark, and I'll kind of explain what jumping the shark means. So when someone is in the fourth stage and they're trying to break into the fifth stage, or they're trying to break in with a new mechanism, they start getting really desperate as a business or as a person who's marketing. They get really desperate and they start trying some really crazy shit. And that's why you get stuff like this. You get beds with springs for bedposts. I don't know who thought of that, who thought that was a good idea. It's probably the same people with the water beds, right? Shake weight, plain and simple. This like Apple doohickey iPad phone thing that just completely bombed because nobody knew what it was or what to use it for. It was all gimmicky. It was crazy. There's stuff everywhere. There's examples of this kind of stuff everywhere. But here's the thing, and here's why I put this little asterisk up here on these examples, right? You can find funny examples of people who are jumping the shark from the fourth stage to the fifth stage. And you can laugh at them all day long. But for every shake weight and for every little weird bed spring thing that I can find on Google, there are thousands and thousands of products and services that don't even get made fun of. They just disappear, right? They just crash and burn. They pivot, they go somewhere else, they close down, whatever. This is the reason why most businesses fail within 5 years and can't get there. They can't get past this point in their market. So it is really important, and it is also the most lucrative for a copywriter. Welcome, Mikhail. I just saw you joined. It's not giving me an option to unmute you, but everybody else is muted right now just to kind of listen to the content. If you have any questions, write them down. We'll talk about them at the end. And then you can go back and see the first couple of minutes of this thing. It's being recorded. The screen is being recorded. The audio is being recorded, hopefully. Let's go to webinar crashes. So welcome. Good to see you. All right. So the two roads, right? There's two roads that you can choose to go down as a fourth stage marketer or as a copywriter for a person in the fourth stage. So the first road is the splinter and restart. Now, we talked about this a little bit in a previous webinar. Now, when you reach the fourth stage and you're seeing all these over embellished claims and all this apathy, well, you splinter and restart, meaning you find a segment of that market, of the market that you're trying to go into or sell for, that is underserved in some way, shape, or form. And we talked a little bit about this in niching. So if you're selling weight loss, or if you're selling a weight loss pill or something like that, you're not selling to all women who want to lose weight. You're selling to the 65-year-old woman who has the beginning signs of osteoporosis and is experiencing menopause and can't really lose weight very well. So doesn't want to diet, and she has things that she wants to do other than work out all the time. And so you're selling her a pill that is basically giving her what she wants. Like, she wants an easy, healthy solution to lose some weight, but she doesn't really want to work her ass off to get it. You're not going to sell this 70-year-old woman P90X, right? I know some people are getting 70 and 80-year-olds into CrossFit, and that's just fine, but that's, different. We'll talk about that actually later in this presentation. But you ID that segment of the market that is underserved, and you go for it, and you go deep into it. So that's the splinter and restart method. Now, in order to do that, you actually have to go to that market and you have to poll them on their needs. You have to figure out the information that you need in order to sell to them, because everything you do for that market needs to be different than how you market it to the larger market. So if you sell a weight loss pill to a general weight loss market, it's not going to be even close to the same marketing that you're going to need to market to these very specific audiences. And so that's a big decision. To take what you currently have and basically throw it all away or stuff it into a filing cabinet and start over in a new market, essentially, and then redevelop all that marketing and exclude your previous market is a very big ask for a lot of companies. And this is why a lot of companies actually die, because they refuse to make this jump. They don't splinter down to a better market or to a more niche or whatever market, and they don't restart. They have this sunk cost fallacy in their brains where they don't want to give up everything that they have. They're in denial, and the business dies. Look at Blockbuster. Look at Kodak. Look at Xerox. Look at these big companies that fail. And then look at all the local businesses that fail. A new pizza joint moves in, and mom and pop are right next door, and everybody's going to the new pizza joint instead of mom and pop. And they're just like, it's just a fad. It won't go away. And then they're out of business. So it happens all the time. And if you can convince a marketer who's in the fourth stage to splinter and restart, then you have a massive advantage, because not only have you convinced them to make a decision that's really difficult for them, but now they're looking to you. Now they want you to help with it. And they're willing to pay for that, usually. They don't want to go into this blind. And so keep that in mind as a freelancer. So here's the second thing. It requires data. You have to have data when you splinter and restart, right? And like I said, you have to convince everyone in the business to pivot. And then you have to convince the prospect that you're going for that you're not just pandering to them. It's really hard nowadays to erase a company's history from the internet, from anything they were doing. So if your market and this segment of the market has been seeing your general advertising for a while, then you're going to have to overcome the hurdle of that prospect looking at your company and going, oh, well, 2 months ago, they were just marketing to everyone. Now they want to come get me. What are they trying to do? This is the same thing. People remember. People can see that kind of stuff because once you've been marketing for a while and you've reached the fourth stage, they kind of have this idea of who you are. And so making that pivot is rather difficult. Sometimes you have to even rebrand. You have to make a new name, a new logo, a new everything for this product in order to convince these people. And then obviously that's the Splinter and Restart component of it. Like I said, your entire marketing apparatus must change. And that's a big, big ask. But if you can get it, then you're the guy and you're the person to help them do it. So that's the difference between a fry cook and a true general that they're going to hire to help them win this thing. All right, so let's talk about the harder road, which is actually advancing to the fifth stage of sophistication and why I refer to it as raising the dead. So this is the most difficult form of copywriting. It is something where you are not looking at things that are really verifiable with data. Even if you survey, even if you do a shitload of research and look into Amazon and all that kind of stuff, like you're still dealing with a lot of things that I'll talk about in a second, like ethereal things that aren't tangible. And so it's very, very difficult form of copywriting. There is some creativity involved in this stage. However, like I say here, it has the most rewards by far. And here's why. Let me explain. So when the market itself and when every business in it has reached the fourth stage of sophistication, they are clawing at each other. There's blood in the water, basically the red ocean. If you've ever heard terms like blue ocean, red ocean, it's a hyper competitive industry when it's at the fourth stage and everybody's trying to one up each other and it's very fast. So most companies fail. Most companies will drop out. Most companies will essentially break and go away. Hold on. I'm looking at this right here and there's like little update thingies that like little caution notices or something like that on here. So I want to make sure that people aren't dropping off or that my audio is fine. Hey, can you guys unmute yourselves? Tell me if the audio is good.
Good here.
Okay.
Good here.
All right, cool. And then I'm just going to go ahead and unmute Mikhail. So now you're unmuted, but you can mute yourself again. Welcome.
Yep, and fine.
Okay, cool. Just making sure because it's got like a weird like yield sign thing that keeps popping up on everybody's thing. I don't know why that is. Anyway, cool. So let's talk about the rewards. Like I said before, the rewards to actually shifting from the fourth to fifth stage are huge because these companies are dropping out. They're dying. They're not being able to move forward. They're pivoting, they're shifting, they're going out of the market. So if you take your weight loss supplement, you go out of the main market and you go down to your niche, they're no longer in the main market. So you're losing competitors. You're losing other businesses that could potentially take your customers. And so this general market is now kind of evening out. A lot of companies, a lot of really big companies try to weather the storm. They just try and outspend their people. And then they basically try and outspend their competitors and last through it. Now, that's not really always the right way to do things. That's what Yahoo just did, and now it's failing miserably, right? So it's a really, really dangerous proposition to just sit there and spend more money than your competitors for as long as necessary. I mean, Walmart kind of managed to do it, but they did it in a time where there was no other big box stores. So, but that's the opportunity as well. These businesses that can stick through it have the opportunity to basically corner the entire market once everybody else drops out. And that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing. But instead of weathering the storm, you can take your skill in copywriting and marketing and shift it so that these people don't have to weather the storm. They simply take over the market by using fifth stage sophistication marketing. That's the key. And that's the thing that a lot of people will be like, okay, I'm willing to pay $100,000 to develop a marketing package to do this, right? I'm willing to pay, 50,000 plus royalties on everything, and my company's worth 50 million or whatever. Like that's where these people are, and that's the stakes. So it's huge. right? Keep in mind, it's the most difficult form of copywriting, and there's a good chance you're not going to win with it. But if you do, it has the most rewards, and that's why these copywriters at the high level are trying to do stuff like this. Like that's why Agora and Stansberry and everybody else hires the best. So Gene Schwartz basically says you're dealing here with the problem of bringing your prospect into your ad, not through desire, but through identification. The first 4 stages are all about desire. The prospect has a primal desire, like we talked about. It's in them, right? And there's enough of those people to create a market trend around it. And so every stage at that point deals with the desire and tries to capture the attention of the person with the desire and sell them on the product in some way, shape, or form. That's it. Attention, desire, sale. That's the first 4 stages. But the reason it fails is because everybody keeps doing it. Everybody ones up each other. And then once you hit that point of apathy, once you hit that point of disbelief, then you can no longer talk to their desire because they don't believe it anymore. They still have that desire in their body, but they don't believe the advertising anymore. They can't. They just won't. And so that's why most companies die. They don't know how to jump. The idea of identification is going even deeper than a primal desire. You know, primal desires can be described as your physiological needs and maybe some of your emotional needs or something like that. But it's very tangible. It's something you kind of give to them. It's something they can feel that we'll talk about here. You know, desire is about feeling. Hungry man, he feels the hunger in his stomach. The overweight woman feels the embarrassment, discomfort, right? So that's what desire is. They feel something. Once the apathy hits, once that 4th stage hits, then they no longer feel those things. And you can't do just desire. The 5th stage is all about keeping the information you have on the feelings and desires in the market, but also throwing in this concept of identification, which we'll go into right now. So when you raise the dead, and the reason I call it that is because you are taking a product that is dying. The desire is not there anymore. The apathy has moved in, and you are raising it so that people feel it again. That is why you're raising the dead with this. So let's talk about specifically what that means. Let's look at some examples first, and then we'll talk about what it means. The 1920s, right? Cigarettes. I don't really care what you think of this industry. It's a really great case study. So cigarettes were marketed to men primarily, and wars, and they came in all the packs for the soldiers and all that kind of stuff. But there wasn't a trend happening in society where women were becoming more interested in smoking. Now, the problem was that the trend was slow. I mean, it was very gradual. There were a few kind of like celebrities who smoked, but not a ton of them. And, some of them were respectable, some of them were not. It was just kind of this, there's a generational component to it, all that kind of stuff. So what the cigarette companies wanted to do was accelerate the trend that they were seeing. They didn't want to create it. Wanted to accelerate it. So when they decided to accelerate it, they had a conundrum. They weren't sure how to push the trend forward. They weren't sure how to get women to start buying cigarettes because they knew that they couldn't sell it directly to them. They couldn't basically say, hey, women, cigarettes are for you too, because they didn't believe that. That wasn't believable. And the ladies would go, well, no, it's not for me. I see so-and-so doing it, but it's not for me. It's not something that I do. It's not for women. Women don't do this. And they couldn't sell it to men, who were the primary buyers at that point, because they were already in the 4th stage. You can't really make more claims, make better claims about that kind of stuff when you're in the 4th stage. So they're dealing with these problems. And so what do? In this case, they linked the product to a desired identity for the women, which was being attractive, desirable, and seductive who smoked. That's something that the women wanted. That's a desire that they had. They wanted to be attractive. They wanted to be desirable. They wanted to be seductive. But they never linked it with smoking. And the way they did this, and I wish I could find an example of the ad, I probably could, not right on here though, is they threw up an ad and basically had a younger couple sitting together in a romantic evening, and the man had just lit a cigarette in the photo, and as he was lighting it, the woman was leaning in and being seductive and basically saying, blow some my way. And that was it. 4 words, and that changed the perception of smoking in the mind of every single woman who saw that ad. She saw herself as being that woman, herself being attractive and desirable and seductive. But in order to do that, she had to smoke. And so they created an entire identity around the product and thus opened up, obviously the other half of the market for smoking. Now, in the 1960s, talking about cigarettes again, cigarette industry, the cancer scare. So they were having a big problem. The whole industry was threatened not only by fourth stage, people were all trying to sell different types of cigarettes using every different type of claim. And so they were threatened. They went through all the stages like I have down here, the filters and then better filters and then like these crazy micronized ceramic filters, and double filter and all that kind of stuff. They went through these fourth stages with all these claims, and then they flipped it to an identity around taste. So it wasn't about the filters anymore. It wasn't about the health anymore. It was about taste. So which cigarette tasted the best? Which one had the more sophisticated air to it? It wasn't about the cigarette being tastier than all the other cigarettes. It was simply about being a person who understood and appreciated the taste of a good cigarette. That's it. It was an identity play. And so twice the cigarette industry saved themselves with an identity pivot, right? They could have gone down hard. Now they're going down hard again, but they could have gone down hard both of these times because they were in the fourth stage with the men and there's really nowhere to go from there. And then cancer was huge. The industry was threatened by actual medical concerns. Now, obviously I don't smoke. I don't approve of, that kind of stuff just because, cancer and blah, 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 blah. But the point being with this industry, you can see how even regulatory problems, catastrophic problems to the industry can all be solved through the judicious application of identity. And that's where we're going to go with this. Let's talk about some more examples just so you can kind of get a feel for it. The first stage of cars was the Ford with the Model T, right? This is not a carriage. It does not require a horse. That is it. Second stage, comfort, larger, safer, things like that. It was kind of uncomfortable to drive around in a Model T. It was bumpy and all that kind of stuff. Third stage, talking about the engine, talking about the American muscle. This is the age of American muscle where everyone wanted the more powerful car, the more powerful engine, things like that. Switched from power to safety to economy, but also kept that power. The American muscle, we're still selling it, has its own subsegment now, all that kind of stuff. The fifth stage, however, because every car can't claim safety, every car can't claim economy, and every car can't claim power, you start associating specific brands of cars or specific types of cars with an identity. Bentley, what's the identity? Tesla, what's the identity? Land Rover, what's the identity? Jeep, what's the identity? Dodge Ram, Mercedes, all those things. You'll see that on that list are some of the top selling car brands. What you don't see on that list are not top selling car brands, people who have failed to associate an identity with one of their products. So that's the fifth stage, and that's the reason why it's so important. Mercedes controls the I'm a successful executive now market because that's the identity. Dodge Ram controls the alpha male, masculine, kind of like truck driving, white sunglasses wearing kind of guy market, right? Jeep controls the adventuresome, unencumbered market. You kind of see how it goes here. Fitness is the same way. First stage, easy. Just lose fat, right? Lose weight, whatever. Second stage, lose it faster, easier, no dieting. Third stage, lose it with ketones, with Garcinia cambogia, hydroxycut, or some crazy diet or whatever, like a specific mechanism. Fourth stage, lose it with all of the above plus extra stuff. So, instead of just raspberry ketones and Garcinia and green coffee extract, we're going to put all that shit in a bottle and you're just going to drink it and you're just going to take this pill because it's got everything. The fifth stage, however, because obviously the pills stopped working and the diets keep coming and going and being faddish and popping around and blah, 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 you start seeing brands associate with identity. CrossFit. CrossFit has created an identity of a competitive sport around lifting, beyond Olympic lifting, and camaraderie, Like we talked about in a previous thing about the 6 core human needs, they've created their brand around meeting all of those. They have a paleo style lifestyle. They have a specific way, they even have like every CrossFit box seems to have a dog walking around. It's usually a black lab. Like there's a very specific identity associated with being CrossFit or being in CrossFit. Same with P90X. When you buy P90X, what's the first thing you do? You tell all of your friends that you just bought P90X. That's what you do. You don't do it first. And then sometimes you never do it. You just tell people that you bought P90X because it's supposed to be hardcore. It's supposed to be intense. It's supposed to be like this thing that is going to change everything and you're super hardcore for doing. Zumba, right? Zumba has its own personality around it. Some people like to make fun of it. Other people are obsessed with it, like love it beyond everything else. And so that's the identity. They've created it around like fun and dancing and specifically women. Pilates is another one. Pilates is just stretching with bands or whatever and, doing hardcore planking and that kind of stuff. So it's nothing original. It just has to do with the brand. It has to do with the story that you're telling about that particular market. So let's talk about techniques, right? That's the background. That's why it's important. That's how you talk to clients who are at this point. Let's talk about techniques, all right? The first thing is desire first. You have to recognize and magnify the core desire of the marketplace. That's the first rule of copywriting, right? Desire never goes away. It never goes away. The only difference is that during the 5th stage and transition from 4th to 5th is that you're dealing with apathy. So you have to reignite that desire somehow. Identification is the desire of your product to act out certain roles in his or her life. That is the important part of this whole concept, right? You have to figure out what your prospect desires to be called, to be known as, to act out that role, defined to the world around him. So what people see him as, expressing the qualities within himself that he values, or, and this one's key, guys, wants to be seen as valuing, right? Oftentimes that is far more powerful than what he actually values. Wants to be seen as valuing. And the third one is positions he's attained. Positions he's attained physically and metaphorically, because physically, if he attains a new title at work, if he attains a new something, then he's going to try to attribute that to his identity. And metaphorically speaking, if he's done something or if he feels different or if he changes somehow, he wants to express that, express the new position in his life. So let's figure out how to do that. Here's the thing. First thing is turn your product or service into the instrument for achieving that role, right? We don't have any specific products that we're talking about right now, so let's just talk about some of the bigger ones. Bentley, right, is the instrument for demonstrating that you have opulence and massive wealth. Mercedes is the instrument for demonstrating that you've made it, that you are now a success. Jeep is an instrument for achieving or demonstrating that you are adventurous, unencumbered, free. And Versace is the instrument for demonstrating that you're sophisticated and superior to others. You see that kind of thing here. The product is the instrument for achieving or demonstrating the role that you want that your prospect wants to show everyone. I'm going to give you guys a little insight. This training that you're in right now, this mentorship program, is an instrument for achieving and demonstrating a role that you guys want to achieve. You guys want to be successful copywriters, successful freelancers, well-known copywriters, and you want to make the money that's associated with that. You want to have the admiring, basically the clout that comes with that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have purchased mentoring. You wouldn't have purchased something that's as intense as this, because most people just want to be known as the person who read breakthrough advertising or want to be known as the person who, went through a bunch of courses or comments on Facebook pages. But you guys stepped out and actually said, this is who I am and I want to prove it. That's why you're here. So you may have not known that in the first place, or you may have not really acknowledged that to yourself. But that is one of the biggest reasons why you guys are here, is you wanted to demonstrate to yourself and to the world that you are taking an extra step, that you're moving up, that you're doing something for yourself. And that's cool. That's admirable. The thing is, these things don't have to be fake. They have to be real, right? They have to actually portray and give the person what they want. So when you buy a Bentley, it's not a shitty car. It's one of the best cars you can possibly buy. Mercedes, it's not a shitty car. It's one of the best cars you can possibly buy at that price point. Jeeps, Versace sunglasses, Versace clothes, all the luxury brands, everything like that. They are truly superior in many different ways. And on top of that, they're also seen as superior or seen as a specific way of doing things, or a specific role that you're fulfilling. That's one of the keys. All right, so let's talk about the 2 rules on how to do it. You have to offer him the fulfillment of a physical want or need, right? So find out what that is and fulfill it for him. The product has to do that, right? When my wife and I went out shopping for a new purse, we bought a Coach purse because we wanted to be seen as the people who can afford and walk around with a Coach purse. That is it. We even talked with the salesperson and said, which one of these portrays what we want to portray? We bought it. We're good. And that is not anything that is wrong with society, I think. I think that is simply a reality of society, that you are judged every second of every day. And when you understand that and move through life like that, you can operate on a different level. You can basically craft the idea of how you want people to see yourself or your family or anything around you. So that's the first rule. Offer him the fulfillment of a physical want or need. Number 2, offer him a particular method of fulfilling that need. And this is the key part of this, defines him to the outside world as a particular kind of human being. Now, you don't have to link this with luxury. You can link this with slackerness, Hot Topic, Spencer's, things like that. You can link it with being a gamer. You can link it with being a poet, a hipster, a basic white lady. You can do it whatever you need to do. You can link it however you want. They just have to actually define themselves the way they want to be defined, right? So those are the 2 rules: physical need and defining them to the outside world as a particular kind of human being. All right, here's an example. This is what Gene Schwartz talks about. Only poor people, only people who are destitute, buy food simply to eat, right? They don't, that's it. They just go out and buy food so that they can not die. The average American, and everybody who has even a tiny little bit of disposable income, anyone in the middle class, anyone in the upper poor has, and obviously in the affluent, they have these identity-based criteria for buying stuff, like modern foods, because they're up to date, right? So modern meaning, I don't know, gluten-free, paleo, low sodium, low fat, low sugar, whatever, like modern style foods because they're up to date, or, not old stuff, maybe old stuff because they want to be seen as going back to their roots, whatever. There's an identity associated with it. And it's interesting to note because food is extremely commoditized. So you have to start creating an identity around the food, or otherwise you're just another thing on the shelf and nobody's going to grab you. Non-fattening foods, obviously, youthful and slim. A lot of these roles, guys, a lot of the identities that people have can be described as nouns or adjectives, right? So if you want to just go get a really big book of adjectives, then find out what those words mean to people in your market, and then start associating them with your product and start seeding them into your copy. The reason I put that, or wishes to be, with 3 asterisks is because all of this stuff is not just about an identity that person thinks he already has. It's about an identity that they want in the future. There's a concept that Dan Kennedy talks about in his book, Marketing to the Affluent, where the mass affluent, the people who are slightly above the average range of the middle class, so they're upper middle class, or they're slightly affluent, as in maybe a quarter or $500,000 worth of assets. Those people are extremely aspirational. They will buy stuff to be seen as far, far richer than they actually are, because they want to be seen as richer than they are, because they have that slight edge. They have it slightly more than the other people. So the aspirational aspect to all of this is key. And if you're transitioning from the 4th to 5th stage and you jump on that aspirational part, then you're really, really grabbing people, because if you can make someone believe that he can be better than he currently is through your product, you've got him. All right. I won't use any more of these because nouns like exotic and rare foods and stuff. But here's the two things. There are two different type of roles: character and achievement. We're going to go into those in just a sec. Character. Mastery is not enough, right? So if you have a character trait, or if you have a sense of understanding of yourself and identity that you are trying to master, then the simple mastery of that is not enough. But just being really, really good at something, or being, thinking that you yourself are fine or are a master at whatever it is that you're doing, isn't enough. They have to be acknowledged, valued, and admired, or otherwise they're worthless. Literally worthless. I think that's a really key term there. Being good at something doesn't matter at all unless you are acknowledged, valued, and admired for it. There are very rare souls who can take that mastery and keep it internal and not care that other people don't see them as masters. But they are extremely, extremely rare. They are not your target market. Most people want to be admired, acknowledged, and valued for what they have achieved. And it's pretty obvious, or what they believe themselves to be. So keep that in mind. You can show, or you can tease in your copy that even if they're really, really good at something, they have to be acknowledged, valued, and admired for it, or otherwise it's worthless, because they know that in their deep heart of hearts. They can be like, okay, well, I'm really good at it, but if nobody sees me, or if nobody acknowledges that I'm good, or nobody admires me for it, then what's the point? That's their mentality. Self-identity with the characteristics is not enough. They must be showcased and seen with no doubt to the audience what it means. And so that's really key here too, that second part, no doubt to the audience. When you buy a product that is supposed to define you as a specific thing, maybe it's a type of suit, maybe it's a handbag, maybe it's a pair of shoes, maybe it's a car, maybe it's a house, there can be no doubt in the audience that you're appealing to with yourself. Yourself is an identity, so not as a copywriter here, but the self-identity of your prospect. No doubt to the audience that you are trying to show them what you're trying to achieve. When you buy a Mercedes, there's no doubt that you can afford a Mercedes and that you do that because you're successful. You can't afford it if you're not. Some people try to, obviously, but even if you try to, or if you get a lease or whatever happens, then you're automatically seen as successful because that product does its job. So that's one way to put with no doubt to the audience is what it means. Keep in mind what the prospect knows about his desires and what people think of those, because you're going to have to bring that up if it's an objection. If you buy my product and you have, you want to be seen as successful or educated or sophisticated, and he thinks, well, actually, most people, when they see this, think that I'm a douchebag. You can be like, no, only poor people think you're a douchebag. Rich people think you're awesome. And he's like, oh, okay, I'm going to buy those glasses. See, that's what you have to understand in your copy. You have to understand that nuance. So 3 ways to do this. There are 3 ways to implement character into your techniques for getting to the 5th stage, into the roles that you're trying to create in your copy. First one is help them achieve the mastery in some way, shape, or form. If it's a product, then helping them achieve the mastery would maybe be some sort of workout product or some sort of like, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Help them achieve the mastery that they are going for, of the characteristic that they want to be known for, right? So a good example, a book on philosophy, right? Somebody wants to be known as smart, or somebody wants to be known as well-read or literate or educated or sophisticated. A book on philosophy will help them achieve that mastery. The book on philosophy is not just to learn about philosophy. It's to be able to talk to their friends about that philosophy later and potentially make their friends look stupid because they know more than them about that philosophy. You got to understand that deeper stuff. They're not going to think this for themselves. That's actually one of the really key points that I'll bring down here with roles of the ethereal. They're not going to think it for themselves, but they are going to believe it and they are going to want it. So help him achieve the mastery, like a book on philosophy. Help him simplify, condense, or speed up his mastery of something. That would be an example of a if we keep up with this philosophy example, you could sell him a speed reading course, right? So instead of slogging through a 600-page philosophical document, you can sell him a speed reading course and he'll get it done in a night because he's read through it and now he's got the stuff that he needs to retain anyway. So you simplified, you condensed, or you sped up the mastery that he is going for, right? If he wants to be seen as healthy and fit, then selling him a 30-day water cut weight loss plan, like photo ready, like be photo ready in 30 days, he'll buy that shit because he wants to be seen as healthy, especially in his photos. So hopefully that makes sense. And the third way to do it is to serve as a symbol of that mastery. Now, like I said before, it doesn't have to be the fact that he already attained that mastery, although that is very helpful. If you are successful and you buy a Mercedes, always good. But if he's aspirational, he can also do that. He could buy the symbol of that mastery. That's the easiest one to do. Serve as a symbol of that mastery. You just simply have to tell the story of the product in a way that convinces them that it's going to show off their mastery or whatever particular characteristic they want. So let's talk about the role of the ethereal a little bit. And I'm going to refer to my notes here on this one because it is kind of, I want to say like a little bit cerebral. Hopefully this stuff hasn't been too cerebral so far, but this one with the ethereal is a little bit more cerebral. So give me a sec here on finding my notes. Okay, so all right. So here's the thing. Here's what Gene talks about. He says, one further fact distinguishing these character roles. Since they are not created by society, but by the prospect himself, and since they are almost never claimed openly, but only hinted at, implied, and prompted, therefore, they can never truly be tested or measured, and they are ambiguous. They are subject to error, and more importantly, they are subject to fantasy. So basically what that means, and he goes on to elaborate a little bit, but basically what that means is these people, every single person, every woman, every man, has these identities that they want to either express about themselves or they want to express their aspirations about themselves. They have them, but they never sit there and think, I want to buy a Mercedes so that people will see me as successful. Sometimes they don't even think, I want to be seen as successful. Right? They just have an intrinsic internal desire for it. That's what they want. And so that role that you're playing and that role that you are trying to instill in them with your copy is important to not throw it in their face, right? A really great example of an ad that doesn't throw it in their face, but also hints at that core desire is that one that I had you copy, Why Men Crack. That was actually a 5th stage advertisement. I don't know if you guys realize that. That market was on the decline, and they were having a really hard time selling their products to whomever. And so they made an ad that talked about in this case, it was a counter identity. It was an identity that they did not want to have, the guy who burned out, and also attributing the identity of the person they wanted to be, full of energy, longevity, health, things like that. So they created the identity around it. That was a 5th stage advertisement, turned that entire company around. So what it didn't do was straight up say, this cereal is the best cereal for making your adrenal fatigue go away because adrenal fatigue is bad. Obviously it doesn't say anything like that, but the role of the ethereal there was that the men were desiring to stay at a high level of performance and they did not want to crack. And so they talked about the cracking and caught their attention. They read the ad, bought the product. So that's an example, but you can go out to a ton of different examples on the ethereal here. Just understand that you can't throw it in their face. And if you guys have questions about that, we can talk about that at the end. So don't make any direct claims. no verbalization. So don't like say the thing that you want them to believe, because oftentimes that'll block them. And understand that they have it, but you can't directly mention it. You have to weave it into some sort of story. All right, the second type of role of these for this concept of identity is achievement. It's different from character, right? Character is something that's internal to the person. Achievement is something that's external to the person. So achievements are something you won, a title, a certification, whatever it is. But the important thing about the achievement is that it's displayed. In the same way that we talk about mastery and characteristics are nothing unless they're shown. They're worthless unless they're shown. Same thing here. You can achieve something and then have nobody know about it. Like, I was the best debater in my high school in Wyoming, like in the state of Wyoming, the best high school debater in the state of Wyoming when I was younger. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. It's the state of Wyoming, whatever, right? It's one of those things. So if you achieve something, it has to be displayed to people that matter to you. And that's part of this thing where you can talk about your achievement. Again, we talk about Versace, Gucci, Coach, Bentley, Mercedes, Cadillac, home in the Hamptons, all that kind of stuff. You see advertisements about it, like he went to Jared. Or you see another even bigger one, Tiffany's, who they don't advertise because Tiffany is Tiffany. Like, if you know what you're doing, you go to Tiffany, blah, blah, blah. They've done that on purpose. So we are defined by the products that we own, and that is not a bad thing, guys. There's so much attention that is flitting around every single day for all these different products. There's so much stuff flying by our heads that people make snap judgments even faster than they used to, and it's only going to get worse. And with social media and everything like that, they only get a small snippet into your lives. So if somebody only gets a small snippet into your life and they don't get to understand you as a person the way that they normally do, or they used to, at least in history, then why wouldn't you want to showcase your best self? The only difference between it is if people are lying, like that prop money I sent you. Like buying prop money and taking Instagram photos with it, or throwing it inside a rented Lamborghini and making a video about how your online marketing system is the greatest shit since sliced bread. That's lying. But if you actually have something, or if you actually have an achievement, you actually have a certain level of mastery in your characteristics, then why not show that off? Because people only get a snippet of you. And that's what most people are thinking inside their heads, but not saying. They're like, okay, I want to show off my best angle for this photo. I want to show off this meal that I just made because it's super healthy and it makes me awesome, right? That's something that they are showing to the world. And as long as you're just blatantly not lying, then you're fine. And this achievement thing is actually really effective and really important in my personal opinion. So that's the difference. Characteristics and achievement. By implementing both of those things into your copy and weaving that into the story that you're telling, it will help you transition from the fourth stage to the fifth stage, because it will help them create the identity that they want around the product that you're selling. Let's do this. So that is the end of the slideshow. If you have any questions right now, I'm going to go ahead and unmute yourself and we'll go through and talk about it a little bit. We'll do about 10 minutes of Q&A, so do that. All right, go for it.
Cool. If I can jump in then. Just on that last bit, you were saying we're defined by the products we own, so that would be like clothing brands, yeah? If you're into wearing a specific clothing brand, or like, for instance, if you just run a Tough Mudder or a Spartan and you've got your medal on and your T-shirt that says I've completed, the trifecta of the Spartan races or something.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that's one example. Yeah. So that is a good example of weaving identity into a product that doesn't necessarily have an identity built in. So, like Tough Mudder is an adventure race, like going to an obstacle course, essentially, but they've branded themselves in such a way that Tough Mudder is seen as not only the toughest or the longest, but also like this specific community, and you get the shirt, you get all this shit. Like there's ones over here like Warrior Dash, there's the Spartan race, all that kind of stuff. They're branding themselves at a fifth stage because they want people to have a certain identity of participating in it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A quick question: are we going to get? Probably already addressed this. Apologies if you did, but are we going to get a copy of this presentation?
Yes, it's recording right now, so hopefully there's no weird stuff. The last couple of presentations have like either recorded the audio and not the visual, or something like that, and some of them were long. So I'm trying to figure out the right ways to put them together and upload them so they don't look like shit. But this one is recording on GoToWebinar and should be fine. It's recording on my computer.
Cool. And this is a side note. I've been wanting to ask you this. How long does it take you to do a VSL for like a 3 to 5 minute? I mean, it's a random question.
3 to 5 minutes is really short, just because it's usually not a VSL. Honestly, like people say VSL or whatever, but it's actually more of an explainer or an ad, something that they'll use on YouTube or whatever. So for me, it takes, start to finish, including research, if I have to do it, maybe like 6 hours. So, yeah.
And you call them explainer videos, basically.
Yeah, explainer videos or advertisements or basically stuff like that. Like, there's not a whole lot of direct selling you can do in 3 to 5 minutes. There just isn't. Most VSLs are at least 20 or 25, and most are 45. So with those shorter ones, they're you got to work with the medium that you have, right? So if you're creating a Facebook video ad for someone or a YouTube video ad for someone, 3 minutes is long for that, but it's way too short to be a VSL. And so you just got to work with the time frame and kind of what the action is that you're trying to go for. Like, nobody's going to buy a $5,000 product off of a 5-minute video, but they will buy a $5,000 product off of a 5-minute video and an application form that goes to a strategy call, and then you close them on the phone. Like, they will do that. So it's all about the medium that you're creating for.
And I don't know if you want to say or not, but are your rates for that? I'm just kind of trying to get my mind wrapped around the market and how it works in terms of payments and stuff. So for like a 20 to 45 minute VSL or explainer video, you usually charge like $8,000. Is that pretty? Mm-hmm. I've seen stuff like $10,000. Is that average?
Yeah. So my price for VSL right now is $8,000. It used to be $5,000, and before that, I wrote them for even cheaper. But I worked my way up, and so here's the thing with pricing, because of what we talked about in the very beginning, the general versus the fry cook type stuff. It really depends on who you're targeting and what their goals are on what the price is. Right? My price, $8,000 for a VSL, is put at that price because I like working with ClickBank publishers and people like that who put out a lot of content, put out a lot of products. And so they're not going to be the ones that go buy these giant $50,000 or $100,000 packages. But they're also not the ones who are going to be giant 6-month projects and a giant pain in the ass and all that kind of stuff. So I've chosen that price point in that market on purpose. Right there, it doesn't support a $30,000 VSL price point because these guys might make $100,000 from their product on ClickBank, but the $8,000 makes sense. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Gene Schwartz book. Sorry, I don't mean to bother you, but is there? I'm down to buy it. I don't know. I'm sure everybody else in the group is. Can we get that puppy?
Yeah. I'll put a note in and I'll put it in here. It's a private connection with the guy that I have who owns the rights to it. So I'll give you his contact information and tell him that I sent you. But it's not something where I can just send you a link. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Any other questions? This was kind of a big one. So
I've got a couple.
Yep.
It's going back to near the start of the presentation. It's going to probably take me a few moments to kind of put it into words. When we're dealing with like 4-stage sort of saturation, if you like, if though, for instance, those Facebook ads you shared us where everyone was basically shouting the same, looking the same, just were the same. If people are used to seeing that, say specifically on Facebook, and now all of a sudden they're getting hit with a similar sort of message and look, but via a direct mail piece, would you still say would you say that's irrelevant, the medium that they're getting delivered the message by, or would a different medium kind of get around that, if that makes sense?
So that's a complex question, and I'll answer it the best I can. So the medium.
I hope I articulated that well enough, by the way.
No, I think I know what you're getting at. So the medium that you're marketing in, whether it be direct mail or Google AdWords or Facebook or Twitter or speaking from stage or whatever it happens to be, your messaging is different for each one of those, and your context of the audience is different with each one of those. And then, so the message and the context is different for every single medium. And then it's further broken down by demographics and psychographics of the market that you're talking to. So, your speech to 70-year-olds will not be the same as your speech to 20-year-olds. And, so that kind of stuff. So from that larger strategic standpoint, it changes your message when you change the medium and you change the message and the context. And then on top of that, though, you're always going for the same thing. You're going for attention and then interest and then purchase, right? Attention, interest, purchase. So by sending someone a piece of direct mail that talks about how to scale their business with a high ticket funnel, like David is here, or how to earn extra money by getting AdWords clients, something like that. You have changed the medium, which means they're not on Facebook, they're not scrolling, they're not they're not in a distracted mindset, right? They're at their mailbox, they're looking at mail right now. But keeping that in mind, they're also right over the trash can. They're sorting their mail based on importance and urgency, and then interest, because they don't, especially nowadays, expect to get advertising that they care about in the mail. Does that make sense? So, it can work really well. It just depends on a lot of different factors. So
I guess you run the risk of then you just enter maybe you get to the first or second stage in that medium, but then all of a sudden 6 months down the line everyone's doing that and you're back in the same boat with that. Is that
yeah. And so direct mail is one of those interesting ones where it actually takes longer for the market to get saturated from purely direct mail, just because, for one, it's harder to track. You can't do as much competitive research on direct mail as you can online. So, and second, it just takes longer in general. It takes time to mail, it takes time to get a response, all that kind of stuff, versus I throw up a Facebook ad, get a click, get a sale today. So that's the difference there. I think it's more complicated than simply just taking this messaging and putting it into the direct mail, but you can definitely capture more attention, possibly more interest that way, and extend your scale a little bit. The point being, there are ways to game around a little bit in the fourth stage, but in reality, most businesses spend all of their time and marketing energy by gaming around in the fourth stage. They're trying to find the next gimmick, the next tactic, the next shiny object, the next software system or whatever to try and outmaneuver and compete their competitor. And so they're circling in the Red Sea is what they're doing the whole time. And some tactics work, some of them don't. They spend a lot of money figuring out which ones do and don't, but they circle in that Red Sea, versus transitioning to the fifth stage and being able to create an identity around your product that is desirable to the marketplace is something that completely blows all these people out of the water. And
I guess then it doesn't matter what medium you're using because you're
right.
Fifth stage.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the same concept of having a first stage product where the desire has never been met yet. And you're just basically saying, I meet this desire, except instead of a regular desire, it's identity and it's intrinsic. So,
okay.
Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, totally.
Do you think the internet marketing market is in the red seat? Because my feeling is that they are running around in circles.
They definitely are. Yeah, internet marketing is definitely a Red Sea market. So with internet marketing, every market's different. Every market goes through its own stages. Internet marketing is one of those things where it has a lot of different demographics of people. There's the opportunity seeker person who like barely makes enough to get out of minimum wage, but he wants a shitload of money and, not as well educated on this kind of stuff. So he's an opportunity seeker, he's one of those kind of people. And then there's the actual small business owners, the people who have a business already or doing something with it and want to learn how to market online. And then there's, people who are in corporate, have a better job, but kind of want a different lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. So the market has different people in it, different types of markets and demographics and psychographics. And so with all the different companies trying to pander around to everyone there, you start getting a lot of Me Too advertising. Everybody's saying the same thing like these people are. Once a new mechanism is discovered, it's immediately copied and pivoted. So, it's one of those markets where because it's all online, it's all searchable. Like I can look up every one of these guys' keywords. I can look up all their ads. I can look up everything and copy them immediately and model them completely and build things quickly and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very rapid iteration style market. And it also shifts every 6 months or a year based on technology because it is so technology dependent. Facebook may change something tomorrow that completely fucks every Facebook advertising course. And so now there's a bunch of other Facebook advertising courses that say this is how you beat it. That's basically SEO in a nutshell. How to teach people to get over the latest algorithm. And on top of that, you've got things like affiliate sales and it's a complex market in the sense of you're competing with a couple clear core desires like greed, and pride and sloth, things like that. Like people are lazy and they don't want to build a huge business, but they want to make a lot of money. People are greedy. They want to make a lot of money, but and they see all this stuff here, pride, like these high ticket guys and being known as an influencer and a brand person, blah, blah, blah. Like the market has some basic ideas and basic core desires, but the execution and implementation of it all is very, very rapid and very Red Sea-ish. Now, what you do see and what you can notice in the internet marketing world with the people who've stayed around and actually succeeded for a long period of time, they've transitioned themselves and their brands into an identity, not only for themselves. And we talked about this actually in a previous training that I'll try to upload and hopefully you can get that. But basically they've transitioned not only their products, but everything about them into an identity. So, when somebody goes and buys a Frank Kern product, it's mostly because it's Frank Kern. And when somebody goes and buys a Dan Kennedy product, it's mostly because it's Dan Kennedy. And by buying Dan Kennedy, you're affirming your identity as a certain type of person. By buying Frank Kern, you're affirming your identity as a certain type of person. And a lot of network marketers do this as well because everybody's selling the same thing in network marketing, literally, like the exact same thing. So you have to be different by being an identity. Like you can't say that my comp plan is better than this guy's comp plan if you're in the same business. So you have to shift and say my shit's better because of my identity or my brand or whatever. And so you can see people in the internet marketing industry shifting into the fifth stage, but a lot of them do it in a really clunky way. And so it's ripe for opportunity. It really is. Hope that answers your question. Yep.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Yep.
I've got a couple more if no one else has got any, but I don't want to hog it. So,
Mikhail, Nick, you guys got anything?
Yeah, I've got a quick one. Would you say then that copywriting is like in the fifth stage? And, this is something we should take into consideration when we're marketing ourselves?
So that's a good question. Copywriting is, well, let's see, there's two different markets, right? There's the how to learn copywriting market, like an informational thing. and then actually doing copywriting for people, which is a freelance thing, a service thing. The information market, I would say, is in a third or fourth stage at this point. There isn't a ton of competition, but the competition that's there has been there for a while. But the actual freelancing thing, where you're competing against other copywriters and for different types of business, freelancing and services in general are not the same as products. And I believe that for a long time. So when you have a market for a service, then it doesn't necessarily follow the same model. Not always, especially if it's a pure service. Like if it's a service disguised as a product, or a product disguised as a service, then you can kind of work with this model. But if it's a pure service, in the sense of I'm paying you to do this thing for me, and it's a one-time thing or it's a recurring thing, then you're dealing with less of a stage, because you're not necessarily making claims. You're dealing with recency, urgency, and targeting, and like the market that you're in. So people who want services are actively looking for services, and there's different ways they do that. People who are potentially in the market for a service act a certain way. People who have a problem but don't know they have a problem yet and can be solved by that service act a certain way. So you can use the stuff we talked about in the beginning, which was the awareness, like the stages of awareness. But the stages of sophistication, like we're talking about right now, they change because you are a service provider, because it really depends on who needs what on the given day for the service at the very top end. Like the number one awareness, I need copywriting. What's the price? Number two awareness, I hate copywriting and I probably need to find a copywriter. Well, now you can advertise and talk to that specific issue. Like maybe do a lead magnet and say, this is, the five reasons you should hire a copywriter, the 5 reasons you shouldn't hire a copywriter, all that kind of stuff, like speaking to their pain. But because I would say that the rapidity, meaning how rapid things turn over in a service market, kind of protects it from this stage of sophistication style thing. Does that make sense? Because there's never, with a service like that, there's never really an end to the demand. There's far, far, far more demand than there is supply of that particular service. And the demand keeps resetting itself. Like a good copywriter can write a piece of copy for a client and that blows up their business, and now they need 10 pieces of copy or that sort of thing. So instead, you're focusing on finding out where your target market is and where the awareness level is of that target market, and inserting yourself as a unique actor in that space, in that space and time. So I know that was a lot more detailed than you probably expected, but I don't believe copywriting is in the 4th or 5th stage, because I think that pure services, are never caught up in this continuum. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a follow-on to that, please?
Yeah, sure.
So I can kind of understand where Mikhail's coming from with that, because if you look at the cut or copy jobs board, which is probably where most of us are looking at the moment, I mean, I don't have any proven results. I can't go in there and say, look at what I've done, and then that naturally gives me more weight than, say, you, for instance, because you can go in there and you can say, well, I'll do this for you, and here's what I've done for someone else. Now, obviously, that's because you're further down the line, and you started somewhere without that. But then, for instance, I was trying to land a deal yesterday, but I lost out to someone that could go in and say, well, these are the results that I've got from a recent project just like yours. So in that sense, there's loads of people saying, I'll write your copy, and they don't necessarily have the ability to show my copy works. But we're not at that stage to say that necessarily. Well, I'm not. I know that. So how would you get around that? Because I kind of see that as being in that fourth, fifth stage there in the total copy jobs board specifically.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So in services, results are everything. I mean, the trick is figuring out how to sell your stuff without results. That's the beginning. That's the trick. And after that point, your success is based on your results and your reputation and the referrals that you get a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Because it is a service. It's a pure service. So I think that the reason so many products come out and the reason so much stuff like this, like these high ticket, funnel client type stuff is so pervasive is because of that problem, where you see yourself as having an issue with being competitive with other people because you don't have results or you don't have what other people have. And basically you're trying to figure out a way to get around that, right? To get around the not having results thing. But the reality is that these people on the screen right now and dozens of others are selling these how to get high ticket client funnels and how to get high ticket client things because people are trying to look for a way around getting results first. So that's the first thing that I'll say about that, right? That's why these things are there. That's the desire, right? Now, there are ways to get results. And the first way is to, the first way is to work for free, to be perfectly honest. First way is to work for free for someone or super cheap for someone and get a result, right? My first sales letter was $300. I would puke if somebody asked me to write a sales letter for $300 right now. But I got results from that. Yeah.
Did you advertise that price publicly, or was that discussed via private messages and stuff?
That's
we put out in public, like on the jobs board now.
That was so long ago.
You go back and edit it.
Yeah. That was a long time ago. I'm pretty sure that came about from a referral.
Okay.
So I can't remember. I can't remember how I got my first client. But the reality was I didn't have any results past that. But what I did have was training. What I did have was a mentor. And I had basically like, this is what I've done so far to work on copy. I know I don't have results yet, but I'm willing to work for you for this and then work with you to get to the point where we're producing something that gets good results. So that's one way.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And I know it's kind of this, start from the bottom type shit that a lot of copywriters talk about, the whole, like John Carlton calls it the shameless whore phase. But there's some truth to it, right? That's one way to do it. Right? And one way to do it is show what you've done so far. Say, I was mentored under Lukas Resheske. I have written all these sales letters by hand. I've read these books. I'm ready to start writing copy for real, but I know that I don't have the experience and the results to back it up, back up huge prices. So let me do this for you at a certain price, right? And then agree on whatever price that is.
That's what I did.
Right. And so that's one way to do it. Like, you always have something. You're never starting with nothing, right? Well, unless you're like just learned about copywriting yesterday and now you're trying to find a client, which you can still sell. You can say, hey, I just found out about copywriting. I think I'm a pretty good writer. Can I work with you for decent? And then you help me or whatever. That is one way. And that I would say is the most sure way to do it. And if you do it right, then it's also very quick to scale up. Like within 3 to 6 months, you can be charging what I'm charging or whatever, because you have results to back up your fees, right?
Yeah.
Now there's this mess, there's this tangle that occurs at the start of everything. From going from 0 to 1 is messy and tangled and fucked up. And most people try to develop these kinds of systems that you're seeing on the screen to like help people who are scared of that stage, because it really is messy and it really does suck. But every single one of these programs, because I've been in several, not the ones on the screen, but several of these, basically teach the same thing, which is you got to go out and you got to do it. Now, like I said, that's one way. There are other ways. So another way to get results is to pivot some of your existing results or rephrase some of your existing results into things that you can claim in an advertisement. So whether that be, I got this many leads in this many days from my copy for my window cleaning business, in your case specifically, or whether that be, I told someone that I know about a particular marketing tactic and they got this result, which means that my stuff got this, like that kind of thing. You can pivot existing results or existing things into results that are relevant to your copy.
So, for instance, like that sales letter that I put up that I'd written a couple of weeks ago got me my first online sale. It got 2 in the 36 hours or something. Ironically, neither were from my Facebook ads, but the sales letter still got a reasonable conversion considering how many clicks went to it. So I could say my copy, I got 2 sales with the first sales letter I put out there. So I wouldn't necessarily say it like that, but I can say something use those small wins, but say it works.
Yep. Now, and this is a spectrum of authenticity. So if you looked at that sales letter and you got 10 clicks and 2 sales, right, then your sales letter converted at 20%. So you wrote a sales letter that converted at 20%. Now I will say that depending on your target market, that is going to throw up a bullshit flag or it's not. If you want to sell like $800 VSLs, or like I did for that Akira thing, or when you want to sell low dollar copy, you can toss out some shit like that and be like, look, I wrote a small sales letter for a small product and it got 20% conversion. And they'll be like, cool, I want that. But the people who know are like, there's no way.
Yeah, we'll copy it.
Yeah.
What about if you were to say, okay, so it got 20%. Admittedly, it was on a very small scale. So, and over more clicks, that may not be the case, but this is the result of that. Would that kind of counteract that?
Yeah, it would. Being more honest, you just don't have to. And I say that it's
self-sure, but don't.
Yeah, don't sell your. Yeah, don't inflate it too much. Like, you're a copywriter, you can embellish things, but don't lie and don't mislead in the sense of, I'm the shit. I got a 20% conversion on this thing and I'm going to charge $10,000 and, fuck all you gurus pretty much. Like,
that was when I was going to go and put that on there straight away.
I've seen it, man.
one other thing you can look at, Jamie, and instead of looking at your conversion rate, since like Lukas says, people call you out on that, is look at the ROI you got from that. So like if you spend $10 on the ad spend and you get $100, and you can talk about 900% ROI again. It's a different metric you can quote. Okay, that's something that I've used a lot. And it helps because when you start off, right, my fees for my emails were lower. So obviously the ROI that the clients are going to get from that, because the fee on the copy is lower, is going to be a higher ROI. So that's another angle you can think about.
Cool. Good ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully that answers it. Don't lie.
Yeah. No.
A lot of people do.
What was running in my head. I just.
Yeah. No, I wasn't saying. I just see a lot of lies. So. All right. Anybody else? Any questions?
I've got a couple more, but then I'll keep asking questions all night if you let me.
Yeah, we've gone a little bit over. All right, guys. So
Can I just ask one more pertaining to the actual training tonight, please?
yeah, sure. One more.
I'm not sure if I missed this, but when we're trying to find regarding the identity, any tips on how we specifically find it for the copy that we're doing, other than like sending out surveys and stuff? Did I miss that?
Let's see. So when you're in the fourth stage, you do the splinter, right? You poll them, you find their needs, you develop and remarket products, all that kind of stuff, right? Fifth stage around identity is more esoteric, more ethereal, and trying to understand the identity of the market as a whole, which means that there's no real, like, I can't tell you to go to TED to find a big idea type thing, right? The best way to do it is to do basically, you guys follow Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah, kind of.
Heard of Gary Vaynerchuk a little bit? Anybody? No?
Yeah, he pops up in my newsfeed all the time, but I don't really listen to him. So.
Well, he's got a concept called the clouds and the dirt. So if you're wanting to get a really good feel for the market and what they want at a deep level, like how they act, how they portray themselves, what they want to be seen as doing, you got to go clouds and dirt. And so this isn't related to his concept of clouds and dirt, but this is the equivalent metaphor. When you're up in the clouds, you're observing everything. So you're looking at your market and you're seeing every blog they read, every Instagram posts from people who are in that market, Twitter, Facebook, all their social, things like that, LinkedIn, whatever your market happens to be. You're kind of looking at the overall feel of what's happening in that market, right? And so you're trying to track trends within that market. And this is the job of a copywriter, is to track trends happening in markets. So that clouds thing is going to give you an overall view of where you see things going. So for example, if you are tracking, let's say you're marketing a weight loss supplement and you are trying to find out what type of identity appeals to the majority of your market. If you want to magnify the result to the entire market that you can, instead of splintering and restarting, like I said before, which is a viable option. It really, really is. Then you're going to look at the market as a whole and you're going to see, okay, well, the men in the market for weight loss like to post about this kind of stuff. They like to be seen as this kind of thing. They share these types of photos. They like these types of things on Instagram. They follow these people on Instagram. So looking at influencers in the market will help. Like, what does that influencer represent, right? What does that person or thing or brand represent on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or the blog or whatever? And so why are people following them? Right? Understanding that core desire. And then working your way around and getting a really big feel for it. And then making sure that you're not identifying niches when you're looking at stuff like that. You can use audience insights to look up influencers and then change things based on male or female or age, things like that. So if you went into audience insights and searched Gary Vaynerchuk and then clicked on female, you would notice some of the trends in the age, the income, the types of pages they like, things like that, right?
Is that available to everyone?
It is, yeah. Yeah, it is. You can just type in Facebook Audience Insights and pop it right up, as long as you have a Facebook ad account.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Yep. And then, so you do that, you throw that in there, you start looking at the overall trend of the entire market. Who are the men like? Who are the women like? What are the age differences and what are they like around there? And so why do they like all that kind of stuff? And if you're trying to go for a truly large market, and this is something that you can or can't do, again, it's up to you if you or your client if they're trying to go for this kind of thing. Like if you're working for IBM, this is probably something you're going to want to bring up to IBM. If you're working for like Joe's Potato Farm, then you're probably not going to want to go for the whole market. Because you need the resources to do this. But when you're looking at the whole market, you don't just look at the guys. And so the guys are liking these, like juice sites like Dan Bilzerian or, whatever, right? They're in that kind of like lad culture crowd. And then the women are the ones who are liking the Kardashians or, the Kendall Jenners or, that kind of thing. And you're automatically segmenting that audience, and you're missing the overall trend for that mass market. So if you put them together, not only can you see some of the pages they like and some of the things they do, but you start seeing the things that matter to them as an entire marketplace, which could be something like pride, right? They're interested in themselves. They want to make themselves look better or fancier or more accomplished or more successful, right? And so if you attach that to your product in a way that they can get to it, then you do that. If it's lust, and they all want to be attracted to each other. Say you're marketing a weight loss supplement, you're realizing that the majority of your buyers are in their 20s and 30s. They all want to look sexy for each other. But if you're marketing it to non-gender specific type stuff, then you're going to have to start approaching it from the aspect of this is the one thing that is designed specifically to, help you get the sexy body that you want to attract someone, something like that, right? And I'm just working off at the top of my head here, but when you're looking at the market as a whole, you're trying to find the trends that drive that market intrinsically rather than individually. And then as you segment down, if you need to segment down, you can also do the same thing where you are identifying the majority market. They're identifying what they want and what they believe in. So if it's 45-year-old men who work in America and work a white-collar job, then they're probably going to want something to reaffirm their masculinity and reaffirm their ability to control their lives because they're at their midlife crisis or whatever, right? So that kind of thing, you can attach that desire to your product and then hit it in a way that's unique and different from everything else in the marketplace. So that's the idea there. You find it first and then find the creative way to hit it that is actually that they're actually going to respond to in a powerful way.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully that answers it. This is some heavy stuff. This is some philosophical stuff. But like I said, if you can help businesses in the fourth stage or help them transition to the fifth stage, then you are the most valuable copywriter on the planet, or among the most valuable copywriters on the planet, because this is what bigger businesses want. This is what bigger businesses are dealing with. All these issues that I brought up over here. It's something that is a huge problem right now because, like I said at the beginning, the issues facing the marketplace right now, especially if you sell a product or a service as a product, you are facing what is going to be eventually a global fourth and fifth stage. You're not going to find very many things that are able to get to the first stage and second stage anymore because they're all linked to each other. They're all coming from something. They're all rapid. So, somebody can discover something for the first time in a day, and then their competitors discover that first thing and create new things by the end of the day. So you're going to be in a perpetual fifth and fourth stage in the marketplace. And so helping companies get out of this by using these principles is something that is going to be ridiculously valuable for high-level copywriters and high-level businesses. Otherwise, the companies who don't want to do this and just want to compete in the first and second and third stage, or they want to circle around in the fourth stage and get eaten alive, they're the ones who are going to go out and buy the software that writes copy for them. They're the ones who are going to go out and, purchase the people off of Elance for 10 cents an article or something like that, and just try and push shit out because that's what they were told to do. Those are not the people you want to be working with as a freelance copywriter. You want to work with the people who understand that there's these massive problems but don't have the right solutions, and you come in and basically say, yo, here's what we're going to do. And that's incredibly valuable for them, incredibly lucrative for you. So thanks, guys. If you have any other questions, we're going to stop this right now, but you can comment underneath the thread that I posted the information in for the webinar. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to hopefully make sure that nothing broke on it, and then I'm going to try to upload it to either to YouTube, because Facebook doesn't like long videos, apparently. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for your time. And hopefully this was valuable. Let me know if there's anything else that you want to discuss in other videos. And yeah, awesome. Have a good day.
Cheers,
Thanks,
Thank you.
Lucas.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.
See you guys.